2020. As such, during the roll call, all commissioners are required to state the location that they are participating from, which would include the city or township, the county, and the state. Also, all votes taken during this meeting shall be roll call votes. The meeting is being recorded. However, if you would like to record this on your own computer, please use the Zoom raise your hand feature and you'll be granted access to record the meeting on your own computer. Would like to remind everybody that the official record of the meeting is the minutes that are kept by the county clerk. Members of the public may address this board during the call to the public. There are two call to the public opportunities, one at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end. Members of the public wishing to address this board will be provided a maximum of 3 minutes. Please wait to be recognized by the chairperson prior to speaking. Once recognized, if you would provide your name and address for the record before proceeding with your statement. To be recognized for speaking, once again, use the Zoom raise your hand button or just wave your hand and you'll be called upon. And then as a reminder, the call to the public is not meant to be a back and forth dialogue between you and the commissioners. Rather, it is your opportunity to present information that you feel is of importance to the Board of Commissioners. With that being said, if you would join me just for a moment of silent reflection before we get going. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next up is if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Time for the call of the roll.
Commissioner Nakagiri.
Present, Heartland Township, Livingston County, Michigan.
Commissioner Griffith.
Present, participating from Genoa Township, Livingston County, Michigan.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Good evening. Present and participating from the city of Brighton, Livingston County, Michigan.
Commissioner Reeder.
Present, participating from Deerfield Township and County, State of Michigan.
Commissioner Helserman.
Present, participating from Handy Township, Livingston County, Michigan.
Commissioner Drick.
City of Howell, County of Livingston, State of Michigan. Jay Drick.
Commissioner Zajac.
Good evening, everyone. Present from Marion Township, Livingston County, Michigan.
Commissioner Gross.
Present, participating from Green Oak Township, Livingston County, Michigan.
Commissioner Plank.
Present, participating from Green Oak Township, Livingston County, Michigan.
A quorum is present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item is correspondence. We have no correspondence. So we'll move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is our first call to the public. If anybody in the public wishes to address the board this evening, if you would either use the Zoom raise your hand function or just wave your hand at us and you'll be recognized for 3 minutes. I see Maris.
Hi, this is my first meeting. I'm grateful that you have them on Zoom because I don't have to drive and I don't drive in the dark. So I'm calling because I've lived in, I guess it would be number 3 of your commission in Heartland Township, and I've been here since 1977. And I have seen a lot of signs for West Nagagiri, and so nice to see him actually in person. I mean, you know, I'm addressing this evening because I'm been watching the news and been very involved in it about what happened on January 6th at the Capitol. And I am in touch with my state senator, Lana Tice, trying to get some answers to the questions about the 2 buses that came from Livingston County for that event on January 6th. I was really appalled. I was really appalled that our president was seen on tape watching on television the carnage up at the Capitol and did not tweet, did not do a darn thing to stop what he had instigated earlier in the day, which was also on the news. So I'm wondering what has happened in our county with the Republican Party to disavow the lies and the voting after that insurrection to still object to the verification of the electoral votes. I was hoping that President Trump would do something to bring the country together by admitting that he lost the fight about it being fraudulent through 60 court cases. So what I'm trying to do is I'm hoping somebody in the Republican Party in Livingston County will reach out to our community and make a statement about how they feel that this was
You
an
have
awful
15
thing.
seconds.
And that's all I want to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate the feedback from the public. Is there anybody else that?
Mr. Chair, you're going to need your name and address and where you live. That should be done in the beginning of call to the public.
Yes,
We don't even know your name, ma'am.
I will spell it. Mares, last name Hirchert, Hirchert, address 2641 Sun Terrace Drive, Heartland, Michigan, 48353.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Commissioner Lawrence. Anybody else wishing to address the board tonight?
Commissioner Nakagiri, Judy Daubenmeier has her hand up.
Ms. Daubenmeier, welcome. You would give us your name and address?
Yes, my name is Judy Daubenmeier, Daubenmeier, 4490 Lakeshore Court, Brighton, 48116. And I'm here tonight because after the January 6th insurrection at our nation's capital, I think we need to do everything we can to bolster support for our democracy. So tonight I am asking that you pass a resolution declaring that the November 3rd election was freely and fairly decided and that Joe Biden is the legitimate president of the United States. I think that distrust in our democracy is being fed by some lies that are being told, and we need to do whatever we can to undermine, to shore up the truth and prevent the undermining of our democracy any further. I hope that all of you, as people who were elected in the November 3rd election, will recognize the legitimacy of other people elected on that same date in that same election, and that you will stop the big lie that's being told about the unfairness of that election. by adopting a resolution recognizing Joe Biden as freely and fairly elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daubenmeier. Anybody else wishing to address the board?
There are a few. Brian John Kier would like to address the board.
Drain Commissioner Jonkier.
Yes, we do have a resolution on tonight. There's some board appointments, and we included a listing of those DPW appointments that we were requesting for renewal. At a prior meeting, one person was submitted without our knowledge and was approved, which is extraordinarily disconcerting for us because it creates issues within the board, and it leaves the people coming into a situation where there may not be any trust. So I want to urge the board to consider the appointments of the remaining members that are on that list, and to move forward with that. We don't need any new insurrections here on the board. That's very important, handles an awful lot of money for Livingston County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jonkier.
Commissioner Nakagiri, we have Cindy M.
Cindy M.
Hi,
Give us your name and address before you start.
Cindy McNevich, MICHNIEWICZ. I'm at 3140 Sheehan Road in Hamburg Township. I'm also a township trustee. I see on the agenda that you are going to vote on authorizing an agreement for new in-car recording devices at the sheriff's level. I want you to consider in the near future to get the sheriff department's body cameras. There's lots of pros for body cameras. It increases the public's trust and confidence in law enforcement. It promotes transparency and accountability in the department. While cameras can't pick up everything, the camera can paint a clearer picture of what happened in an incident, especially in complex situations. As a general rule, people tend to behave better when they know they're being watched. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Anybody else wishing to address the board?
Commissioner Nakagiri, we have Mona Shand with her hand raised.
Ms. Shand, welcome.
Thank you. Mona Shand, 4852 Oak Tree Court, Brighton, 48116. Good evening, commissioners. It's nice to see all of you, even virtually. I know I haven't met some of you yet. I sent you all an email last week just to introduce myself. I'm the Livingston County Field Representative for U.S. Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin. So I just wanted you to be able to put a face with the email. And again, to reiterate that if our office can be of any service to you and your constituents, please don't hesitate to reach out. We have liaisons at every federal agency, so we can really help cut through any red tape that you or your constituents might be experiencing. I'm happy to provide grant support letters for any federal grant that you might be applying for. And just, any issue that comes up that needs assistance at the federal level, that's what we're here for. So I look forward to working with you. You all have my email and my cell phone number, and I wish you a productive year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Anybody else wishing to address the board?
Commissioner Nakagiri, we have Michelle LaRose with her hand raised.
Ms. LaRose, welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up with Drain Commissioner John Kier's comments and express my desire to for the approval of the current slate that is up for reelection for appointment to the DPW board. As Deputy Drain Commissioner, I have to work directly with the Board of Public Works. And those that are up for reappointment, I can attest that they are very good at scrutinizing the information that I present, making sure that good decisions are made on behalf of the constituents that we serve for the sewer systems. They're very knowledgeable and have a wealth of experience in various areas and provide great support. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'm not seeing anybody. Cindy's shaking her head no. So I would remind everybody, we'll close this call to the public and remind everybody that there is a second one towards the end of the meeting. Item 7 on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes, one dated January 11th, 2021, another January 20th, 2021. I'm looking for a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
Move to approve, Gross.
Support Plank.
Any discussion, corrections? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Gross,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri,
Yes.
Commissioner Helserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Drick,
Yes.
Commissioner Zajac,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffith,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 8, tabled items from previous meetings. There are no tabled items, so we'll move down to the next one. It is, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Lawrence.
Support Zajac.
We have a motion and support. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri,
Yes.
Commissioner Drick,
Yes.
Commissioner Helserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Zajac,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffith,
Yes.
Commissioner Gross,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
motion carries.
Next item on the report, item 10 is reports. In this section, after the presentation from Ms. Feinberg, we'll also have commissioner reports and also a report from our health director. But appreciate Sue Feinberg joining us. She's been our representative with MERS for quite some time, a wealth of information. She's going to discuss, for new commissioners and existing commissioners, the pension system and some of the options that are available for us in terms of, in addition to paying down the pension debt, any other options that are available for policymakers to choose from. So with that being said, is Sue out there?
I am.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Thank you very much.
Lots of little squares. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. For those of you who don't know me, I've been with MERS for going on 18 years. I'm the regional manager for Southeast Michigan. So I work with the employers when they're going to make plan changes, education for boards, work with management to wrap their heads around the actuarial valuation, all things MERS. I'm basically the point person. So tonight, what I thought I would do, I think you all received in your packet the most recent annual actuarial valuation. So for those of you who are not familiar with the pension plan that the county offers, they offer a defined benefit plan. It's a regular defined benefit plan for some of the older employees. And then for all the new employees coming in, it's a hybrid plan. So it's a mixture of a very low defined benefit plan and a defined contribution plan. Is there anyone who would like me to just go through a quick how a defined benefit plan actually works, how that's structured? Or is everyone pretty familiar with that?
Are there anybody want a quick review on the defined benefit portion? I think you.
Okay. Well, I thought going forward, what I have found to be probably the most helpful is if we make this more of a conversation. So if you have questions as we go, and I know Nathan was kind enough to send over some of the questions ahead of time that the council chairperson has, which I really appreciate, so that I can address those. But I thought we would go through the most recent annual actuarial valuation, which is for the year of 2019. So how the annual val works is the val takes at the end of the year everything that's happened for the whole year, and what it does is the actuaries work with all the information as far as money going out, money coming in, rate of returns, assumptions being met, not being met. They calculate all this information for each one of the individual municipalities in our system, which is over 800. And they come up with what your projected required employer contributions are going to be. And so they have to wait until the end of the year, and they take a snapshot of the whole year. And then this report comes out in June of the following year, which projects your rates for 2021. So this most recent report that we have gave you your rates for 2021 going forward. Now, your next one will be coming out in June, and that will be projecting your rates for 2022. Something with this actuarial valuation is this one shows the impacts of some of the changes that MERS have made to their assumptions. So as part of our fiduciary responsibility, we do an experience study every 5 years. What the experience study is the actuaries, which is Gabriel, Roeder, and Smith, actually go and they look at all the assumptions and the actual data. So is it matching up? You know, is the experience meeting the assumptions that we're using? They look at demographic assumptions, they look at rate of return assumptions, and then they make recommendations to the board. So they take this information on a national basis, they take it from data within the state of Michigan, and then they also look at the data within the plan and drill it down to each individual municipality, make recommendations to the MERS board, and then they'll, decide whether they're going to adopt it and how they're going to move forward. So as a result of our last 5-year experience study, there were 2 changes that the board adopted. One was lowering the rate of return assumption from 7.75 to 7.35. So that was impactful in your 2019 actuarial valuation. The other piece that they wound up adopting was they adopted new demographic assumptions. So to go into the demographic assumptions, what they are is the demographic assumptions are a combination of mortality, people filing for disability, when they're retiring, and termination dates. So this, for example, they are assuming when someone is going to retire. We know when they're going to be eligible because every year they're tracking how many years of service they have, their age, and when they're actually going to be able to retire. But that's different than when they're actually going to start pulling a check out of the pension plan. Because with a pension defined benefit type structure, the whole goal is to have it pre-funded so that they're anticipating how much an employee is going to receive as a pension when they are eligible to retire, because it's a lifetime benefit. So how long they're going to be collecting that benefit and how much that benefit is actually going to be. So these 2 changes, due to the experience study, were pretty impactful. Lowering that rate of return assumption from 7.75 to 7.35 was very impactful. So what it did was it lowered your rate of return assumption and it lowered your assets. So actually lowered that value, because now we're assuming on a going forward basis that we're not going to be earning the interest that we used to. As a noteworthy item, I just wanted to let you know that as of the end of 2020, our rate of return was an actual 13.38%, I believe. So thankfully, we wound up on a good year. I know that while we're talking about rate of return assumptions, that was one of the questions that that came up. And if you'd like, I would be happy to address that now. And the question was, would you like to ask the question, Wes, so that everyone can hear it? Or would you just like me to address it?
If you would, I had sent Ms. Feinberg, I think 4 questions that I said I was going to ask. So if you would read the question, I didn't have them printed out in front of me. So
sure. Well, one of your questions was, here I have them right in front of me and I have to look for them. For 2021, MERS used an assumed rate of return of 7.35, yet other major pension funds use no higher than 6.85. The examples he gave was the Michigan State Police System, and while another uses as low as 6%, which is the Michigan Public Schools. That is true. They do use lower rate of return assumptions. One of the reasons that we are at 7.35 and then we're not at something like 6 is because we are such a large multi-employer plan. So we have over 800 municipalities in our plan. So when we look at making any change to that rate of return assumption, before they decide on that, we do a lot of impact reports to find out what the impacts are going to be on all the employers, since we have so many people in the system, and it impacts everyone so differently based on their demographics, their funding level, and all these things. And so we come to a place where the actuaries are comfortable with it. Our investment team is comfortable that they can make that mark, because investment wise, over the past 35 years, which, keep in mind, defined benefit plans are long-term plans. They're not short-term strategies. And so, it was about 9% that they've averaged as an average over the last 35 years. So keeping with mind who we are, and we are different, that's why we're at 7.35 and not more conservative. However, that does not mean that you cannot structure your plan and be billed using a more conservative assumption, because we can. And there is a table in the evaluation that we'll get to that gives you an example of what a lower return assumption looks like and what your contributions would be. But we can easily have the actuaries calculate. If you wanted to look at, you're like, okay, Stu, we think that we should be paying, our contribution should be based on assuming MERS is only going to be getting the 6% rate of return. We can do those calculations for you, and we can bill you under a more conservative rate of return assumption. Completely possible. So to answer your question on that, that's why we're at 7.35. It's something that the actuaries are comfortable with, and it's something that our investment team is comfortable with. Does that answer your question?
Yes. I would just make one follow-up comment / question. If we were, so that the decision to use that MERS was recommending 7.35%, I'm thinking that, would I be wrong in thinking that if it were made more in line with these other pension funds, if we were down in the high 6s to low 6% rate of return, that it could have a larger negative impact on municipalities that are less well funded than Livingston County? Say if you were in the 50 or 40% funded range. Is that?
Yes, it would reduce everyone's value of their assets.
Okay.
So
all right. Thank you.
It really does. And Treasury is comfortable with this also. Keep in mind, we work very closely with Treasury. They're comfortable with this, and they're also comfortable with the fact that no matter where a plan is funded within our system, and it goes from, since I have Southeast Michigan, from 20%, some like 24% funded, all the way up to, we have groups that are over 100% funded. And so it is all over the board, but it's something that, and the actuaries are really the ones that are the watch eye on this. So we are constantly working with the actuaries because they sign off on all of this, and Treasury. And Treasury knows, to my point, that everyone, no matter where your unfunded liability is, you're on a path, if you have an open plan, to be 100% funded in 19 years. Because we take that piece of unfunded liability, which is the difference between the county being 75% funded where you are right now and 100% funded, and it's amortized over a piece of time, period of time. So it's amortized like a mortgage. So theoretically, in 19 years, your current liability will be paid off and you would be 100% funded. That's not to say, as we go along, there's going to be ebbs and flows, obviously, in the market and assumptions, experience meeting the assumptions and so on. So that's basically kind of a high overview of how we landed where we are. But at any time, if groups want to pay their plan off more quickly, we can accelerate their amortization period. We can move it down to whatever you're comfortable with. So it's very feasible for us to work with you. If plans want a different path to get where they're going, we can easily work with you to get there. So having said that, you are 75% funded. Your funding level did go down a little bit. And one of the questions that you had asked us was why the demographic assumptions had such a big impact. This dropping that percentage was, and would it be helpful, would you rather I shared my screen, because I'm looking at another screen for the annual valuation and I know you all had it in your packet. Would you prefer that I shared the annual valuation on the screen with you?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I should have asked that right out of the gate. Okay, can everyone see it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So this is where we are right now. This is when I'm giving you your current funding level. That is at 78%, and went down to 75%. And I can understand it's frustrating, but that's based on your rate of return assumption, us readjusting that, and also the experience in your plan. The next page we're going to go to is, with having said that, obviously, your costs are going to be going up too. So that impact is also due to the fact that we have shrunk your years for when you can have this funded. So now, instead of 19 years, we're going down 18, 17. So every year that goes down, your costs are also going to be going up a little bit. So what this table shows you is, this table shows you what you were paying as of January 1, 2020, and then what the increase is going to be going to 2021. And you've just started paying this since your January 1 fiscal year. And so with the no phase-in rates, it is actually around $73,000 more per month. Now the phase-in, no phase-in, we just give you the option because the increase due to the assumptions sometimes is a difficult budget challenge for some municipalities. We give them the option to kind of phase in the impact over 5 years versus paying really what you should be paying with that full impact. So that's the difference there between the phase in and the no phase in. So if we go down, we also show you on the next page, if you see this right here, this is, and again, full disclosure, this is assuming that the experience of the plan is meeting, all the actuarial assumptions that we're using. If you wanted to get to 100% funded in 10 years instead of 19 years, and I know that the county is already making additional contributions, which is great. it shows you, what the increase in contribution would be. So instead of that 448,000, it would be 655,000. Just to give you an idea, if you wanted to accelerate it, again, that's just a broad idea. In here, we also talk about comments on the rate of return assumption and the assumption changes in 2019, what they were, that it went from 7.75 to 7.35. We also talk about the fact that they also lowered the wage assumption from 3.75 to 3.0. That's not only wage assumption, that's also price inflation for the lifetime of a person's career. So as we continue to go down, a lot of good information in here. There's also a link to the appendix, which really takes a deep dive into the assumptions and how they all work. So if you're ever really curious, you can click on that link and really get into the weeds. It actually is pretty interesting. The next table that I think is really important for everyone to look at, this is a projection table. So let me explain it because it's a little confusing at a first look. So the top half of this graph is showing you with the new rate of return assumption, what the annual minimum requirement from the county is going to be. So if you look at that top box and you see fiscal year, go straight across beginning in 2021, go all the way across, you'll see it's about 5.8 million. That's your annual contribution for 2021. That's just the minimum requirement. Knowing that in 2022 is when the demographic assumptions is going to be impacted, you're going to want to take a look at the middle of that table, and we're projecting out through 2026 to give you an idea for budgeting purposes where you're going to be. So with that demographic assumptions, and that was the one that I was explaining in the beginning with the mortality and the retirement, this is taking into account those demographic changes. So the first line for 2021 in that second part of the table just gives you an idea that if we were using these new, adopted assumptions for 2021, what your contribution would be, that instead of 5.8, it would be 6.5 million. But for budgeting purposes, this is what you're going to want to look at starting in 2022, because the next line down goes across and it shows you that it's going to be 6.6 is going to be the required minimum annual contribution, and just gives you a little idea going forward. Your funding level is going to dip a little bit because of these changes, but it's going to wind up trending back up. Now, one of the other questions that you asked, Wes, was why the demographic assumptions had such a large impact on your group, which was a very good question. And we found that it did have a slightly different impact based on the makeup of your group, because one of the changes in the demographic assumptions was something that they've really not looked before at, like really took into account the number of disabilities. Is it worthy to look at public safety groups a little bit differently, based on some of the assumptions, as far as, are they retiring as soon as they're eligible, or are they working a little bit longer? With public safety, they have found through experience that public safety workers tend to retire, when they're first eligible. In contrast, when you look at a library, librarians tend to work longer. So they work past that, so the money is in the plan for a longer period of time. You've got that time value of money. You've got longer to pay that benefit that's going to be going out. Also, with the disability claims. So some of those things were more impactful if you had a large population of public safety people in your group. And again, we made those adjustments to make sure that you're funding your plan in the best way possible when we make these changes. Now, the next little box of the table underneath kind of goes back to what we were talking about. When we're talking about if we were using more conservative rate of return assumptions, what would our minimum requirement be? And so we show you the 7.35 just to give you an idea of what they would be. Again, it's, you know, we can definitely make these changes if you choose. So for example, if we were using 7.35 for 2021, your minimum required contribution would be $10.1 million. So some people will take the 7.35 and the 5.35 and kind of go in the middle and say, you know, maybe I think, you know, right in the middle, 6.35. So again, this is something that we can work with you, but just to give you an idea, you know, in your question as to what the impact is as far as cost and what it does to the funding level, that just gives you kind of an idea so that you can see it. Does that make sense? Any questions? Okay. This next page I think is really nice because what it does is it takes that information and it shows it to you in a graph form. So this graph is the funding percentage. So this shows you the trajectory of your contributions and where it's going to take you on a funding level. Now there's a lot of lines here. So what I want you to look at is the orange dotted line, which is the line that has all the new assumptions baked in. Okay, and it shows you making your minimum contributions where you would be. However, the county has been putting in additional money into a surplus division. And for those who are not familiar with what a surplus division is a way to make additional contributions in your plan to bring your funding level up more quickly without reducing your minimum required contribution. So by saying that, for an example, it's like paying down the principal of your mortgage. You can make additional contributions to your principal to pay it off more quickly, but it does not affect your monthly payments. Where the county has put in quite a bit of additional contributions, and that was one of the other questions, you know, why hasn't it had more of an impact? When they first started making some large contributions, what the actuaries do, if you make a contribution and it's just with your regular employer contributions on a monthly basis, or if you made it on an annual basis, they actually give you credit for it because to them, you've just overpaid that minimum requirement. So you get a little bit of a credit. So they're actually reducing the amount that they're billing you on a going forward basis. And the county had said, that's not our intention. You know, the county just wanted to bring up their funding level. Well, MERS, and a lot of it was driven by the conversations that we had with the county and with the actuaries and how they were actually doing this. What we wound up coming up with was something that's called the surplus division. So the surplus division, when the county makes additional contributions, they're putting them in the surplus division. So it's like putting money right into your asset bucket. Okay, so that money is in there now and it's earning interest for you, but it's not going to be reflected like a payment so that the actuaries are not going to reduce the minimum requirement they're billing you. And that's one of the reasons, if you noticed that on the table that we were just on, and I said that your funding level was 72%, but yet at the beginning of the report, it was actually 75%. That 75% is the actual funding level of your plan due to the money in the surplus division. They're calculating for budgeting purposes that you're not going to put any more additional money in there. And that shows that it's not being included going forward. Okay. So it really is a good way to get to where you want to go more quickly. So having said all of that, that dotted blue line on the very top, that shows your funding level with those assets from the surplus division. So you can see how much more quickly and this is assuming that you're not going to put any more into your surplus division. This is just accounting for what you've already put in there. So you can see that orange line again. So it would probably be around 2039 before you hit that 100% funded level. Okay. Now with the little blue dots, which is the actual assets in your plan, okay, you're actually going to hit that in around 2035. And that's right now if you didn't put any additional contributions. So you've just shaved off a few years just from the money, additional money that you have in your surplus now. So that's a good way to see it working for you and see where you are. This graph below it, this is going to show you your contributions. So this shows you, the minimum contributions that are going to be required. Again, this is not taking into account, any future money going into your surplus division. And again, you're going to want to look at the orange line. The top line is using that 5.35 rate of return assumption. So the more conservative rate of return assumption shows you the level that your cost would be going up. Before you hit, this is when you hit 100% funded. So when you hit that 100% funded level, so as we're projecting, like in 2039 here, you're going to see your cost go down sharply. So once the unfunded liability in the plan goes down, your costs are going to go down because then you're just going to have the normal cost left. The normal cost is all of the actives in your plan accruing one more year of service. So if we go to this next table, it spells it out a little bit better than that. This breaks it down, and it breaks it down by divisions. So it breaks it down as to what, the normal cost. This is the cost for each one of your divisions based on the provisions in the divisions and the demographics of the actives that are still in there, what it's costing, what we're billing you as a percentage of payroll on a monthly basis for them to earn one more year of service credit under that benefit. And then the employees, you'll see, are also contributing 5%. Now, these last three are considerably lower because these are the new hybrid plans that the county had set up. Okay, so the cost is lower because most of these are a 2 or a 2.5% multiplier, the higher. These are a 1.25% multiplier, and the employees are not contributing to them. So that breaks it down when you're wondering about setting up new benefits for employees going forward. Just gives you an idea if you create a low benefit, how much you can really reduce your cost to your plan. If we go to the very bottom of it, this shows you what the normal cost would be. So if you were 100% funded right now, your annual contribution required to be the 2.1 million. This 3.7 million, that is the portion of your plan. That's that unfunded liability. So that's the difference between that 75 and 100% funded that's being amortized over a period of time. So then we add that in, and that's what's bringing you to your, 5.8 required contribution on an annual basis. So there you can see that really the bulk of the cost of the plan is, unfunded liability that's being paid down. Table 2 breaks it down by each one of the divisions. So this breaks down what each division has for their current benefits. Now, all of these divisions have been closed, so no new hires go into them. You do still have quite a few actives in them. For example, I know this first division, I think, has around 76 actives in it. So you still have a lot of people in these divisions, but all these divisions, you have a 2% multiplier, 2.25, a 2, 2%. Now, again, these are all closed. So new hires for all of these divisions on a going forward basis are now put into the hybrid division. Okay, these hybrid divisions are a much lower cost because the multiplier is a 1.25% multiplier. There's no retirement rider. So for example, up here, if someone in the sheriff's union was age 50 and 25 years of service, they could leave with their full pension. Now with the hybrid, you have to be 60 years old, you have 6 years to vest, and then at age 60, you can start drawing on your pension. So it is a much lower benefit, hence the much lower cost. Again, please feel free to stop me along the way. Table 3 breaks it down as your participants in your plan right now. So that division that we looked at, that division 1, which is your non-union division, You had 10 employees leave from 2010 to 2017. I'm going the wrong way. From 2018 to 2019, there was 10 employees that dropped off that plan. As you can see, that next line, it says active employees. So you went from 86 to 76, and you've got former vested members. So you went from 53 to 50, 52 to 54. What a former vested employee is it's someone who's met their vesting requirement in their particular division, but they're not eligible to retire. They've not met, the age, the years of service. And so they would have to wait until, normally it's that default, until they reach age 60. And if you go straight across that line, it gives you the average age of that group and the average years of service. So the average age in that group of 55 employees is 51 years old, 10 years of service. So that means that they would have to wait until they're age 60. So we are taking into account what the benefit is going to be, what they're going to be able to collect, so that we can make sure that that's part of the calculation as the liability for the county for when they do start collecting. That next line is retirees and beneficiaries. So you had 4, probably some of your actives actually retired and went into the retiree status. You added 4 people. And again, you can see what that total payroll is for the 254 retirees and or their beneficiaries who are collecting is 4.5 million. We break it down through all your divisions. You go down and you can see actives down to the next page, which is going to give you your totals. You can see currently in the plan, there's 516 active. So you did hire 8 people over the span of the year. You have more in your former vested category. You also gain, 19 retirees in the plan. And it gives you your total number of participants. So keeping in mind, that's a lot of money going out of the plan. You've got a lot of people on the payroll. Now with the defined benefit plan, this is one of my favorite tables, because with the defined benefit plan, it's designed that you're earning money on your assets. So the money that the county is putting in there, it has that time value. So it's in there, it's earning interest, and over time, it's just in there working for you. And it's in there working so that it can help fund the liability of these employees' benefits going out. It's designed so that they are fully funded when they get ready to retire. So the more well-funded your plan is, the more interest you're going to be making to make those benefit payments. So let's take a look at it's a 10-year historical look, but if you go across that bottom, you'll see that required contribution, okay, that 4.8 million, that was that minimum required contribution that we billed the county. If you look at the next column, that column is the additional contributions that the county has made into MERS. The next one is the employee contributions, so that's 6.82. And then you've got your investment income. So this is the money that you earned on your balance. So you earned 5.8 million on your asset balance. 1.25 million. Now here's your benefit payments going out. So you can see that's a lot going out. So if you're just doing the simple math, and I think this is probably one of the only places that you can really kind of look at it, and it just gives you that flow of assets coming in and money going out. And keeping in mind the way MERS is billing you, the way we're regulated to bill you, unless you ask us to do that differently, is we're billing you the normal cost of all the employees earning 1 more year of service credit, and then that unfunded liability amortized over 19 years. So that's where we come up with that 4.8. So you can see that if you were not earning that money, you would be a little bit more in balance. So at least the money that you're earning is paying all but about 2 million of your retiree benefits going out. So it is in there working for you. Questions about this?
Any questions from commissioners?
I think it's a really helpful table that really gives you a look back. And also if you look at like your benefit payments going out to, you've got more retirees, right? Getting on the payroll. A lot of those retirees too are getting a cost of living on an annual basis because that's what they retired out with. And so, you know, that salary for them, the benefit, I guess I should call it, is actually going up a little bit too, because they're getting, I believe it is a 2% cost of living on top of that. So you're going to see that middle category continue to go up. This just breaks it down by your active employees, what your actuarial accrued liability is. And you can see that it's large because you have a lot of employees in your plan. Now you can see for your active employees what the liability is, those former vested members for everyone, and then also what that liability is for your retirees and their beneficiaries and your total assets. And each division is funded on its own. So you'll see all the funding levels of all the different divisions over here. And it might, you know, you'll say, these divisions are overfunded. Why is that? That's because the hybrid divisions, it's a blended rate and it's blended with a couple of other divisions. And so when it comes in, the way they disperse them, the hybrid divisions wind up being a little bit overfunded. So we can easily transfer those assets if you'd like to move them into the, you know, the other divisions that are not funded as well to bring their funding level down to 100%. Your choice.
Sue, we do currently do that. So we reallocate the assets at the end of each year.
Okay, thanks. Cindy, you're already ahead of me. I should have known that. Going forward, this just gives you, you know, this is historical. So this table is going to look back from 2019 all the way to 2005. It looks at your funding status, looks at your, you know, liabilities, assets. And then we break it down by divisions. You can also see in each individual division, because each division has their own funding level. You have quite a few divisions, so I'll try not to make you dizzy as I go through these, unless there was one that you really wanted to look at on its own, and try and just get to, let's see. So we have a good historical table in here. So when you're looking at the plan and you're wondering, you know, how did we get here? How long have we been in MERS? What has happened? The very, very back table gives you a breakdown of each individual division in the plan, along with what's transpired since they came in. This is your GASB 68 information. And then right after that is a benefit provision history. So you can take a look at Division 1, which is your non-union division, and you can see going back to the time that they joined MERS, which was in 1965, what benefits they came in with. And then when you see all of these E2 COLAs adopted, this is on an annual basis. It's up to the board as to whether they wanted to give a cost of living increase for retirees. And so you can see how many times, like over the years, and this was pretty commonplace, that a board would, at the end of the year, say, you know, our budget allows it, let's give our cost of living of 2% to our retirees, and they would get, you know, that bump in their retiree paycheck. It used to be that you would do that, and since the actuaries didn't know ahead of time whether you were going to do that, because it was based at the end of the year, it caused a liability that we had not accounted for. And so you've just given all the retirees an increase in their payment. However, we didn't know whether you were going to do something like that or not. And so what we started to do, probably right around the time that you stopped adopting it, was we started requiring that you fund it up front. We've made quite a few changes over the years to our policies based on changes in fiscal responsibility and trying to get everyone to move the right way, by having this fixed amortization period. So we know now everyone in 19 years is going to be fully funded. You can't make any changes to your plan unless you're at least 80% funded and you pay for that increase up front. And cost of livings for retirees also would have to be paid for up front if you did choose to do something like that. But this is a great historical piece. And it goes through each one of the divisions with all the breakdown. And then at the very back of the actuarial valuation is the information that the county needs for Treasury. Okay, it's Treasury on an annual basis. Now, all municipalities that have a defined benefit plan are required to fill out Form 5572. So here's all the information that you need to fill out that form. The state does ask for uniform assumptions because within the state of Michigan, we have MERS, which is the largest plan, but we do have quite a few employers that administer their own defined benefit plan. And so they ask everyone to submit numbers so that we're all looking at apples to apples. And so they ask for a level like 7%. So we've done all those calculations and given them to you so that you can pass them along to Treasury. It won't affect how you're billed for MERS, but anyway, we give you that data. And that just reminded me of a question that I think was asked that I did not address. Let me see if I can see which question that was. Wes, do you remember if there's something that I know. Some of the fees I did not answer. You asked me a question about fees and what fees MERS charges. And your question was, I believe, what is the actual investment fee that we charge? So we bill based on basis points, and the investment piece is 0.11%. So it's 0.11% is the investment fee that we're charging you. So that's 11 cents on $1,000. The basis points altogether for MERS to administer your plan is 0.32%. The 0.21 is for all of the administration of the plan. So that's for legal, actuarial, all of the record keeping, paying the retirees, educating the retirees, the whole administration of the plan. So all in, it's 32 cents a thousand. But to answer your question, it's 0.11%. And we're able to keep that investment fee low. One of the reasons is because of the large the assets. I believe, don't quote me on this, I haven't seen the latest, right around $12 billion. So just with the economies of scale, when we go out to our money managers, we're able to negotiate low fees based on the asset balance that we have. Also, we're now managing 30% of our portfolio internally by our investment team, and that's been going really well. And any money that MERS invest internally and manages, there's no fees associated with that. So hopefully, Wes, I think I answered all your questions.
Oh,
One of the questions that you had asked was, what can we do differently? So are there any questions on the annual valuation before I jump to another kind of conversation? We good?
Sue, I just have one, actually two questions. Back on pages 16 and 17. Mr. Chair, if I can be recognized.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Zajac.
So looking at on page 16, I believe I understand the hybrid plans are the ones that start with H. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So can you just explain, you did a nice job in the beginning, but then I kind of lost track of it as you got to the hybrid, just to relate the the numbers in the columns for the valuation on that page for the hybrid plans.
Sure, as far as breaking down the cost of the actual plan itself.
The breaking down the costs.
Okay. Give me 1 minute to get there. Sorry again if I'm making you dizzy.
Up on page 16, the table there.
Am I going the wrong way? What is
I think
going
so.
on? It's working by the, not used to these lights. Actually, lack of. I'm used to sitting next to a nice bright window. All right, bear with me. I'm almost there.
That's okay. Yeah, right there. Oh,
I think right here.
up a little bit. So I'm looking at the bottom of page 17, right there. So just if you could explain for me, you did a nice job, like I said at the beginning, but just if you could explain for me that information in these columns again for the hybrid plans.
Oh, yeah. Sure. I'm sorry. With the hybrid plan, what it's showing you, so for example, if we go to the first HA for the hybrid, they are in the pages that break down the divisions and what their actual provisions are. It tells you which divisions, actually go into this. The big feed is that general non-union division 1, which is so large. So there's 247 employees in there right now. So this is telling you that the liability, the current liability for those active employees, so this is benefits that they earned to date, is 12.5 million. And then in that category, again, you still have your former vesteds, and then you do have employees that have retired out of that division.
Okay, and then is there, maybe it's a different table, but is there a total asset value that they have contributed? Because obviously the valuation takes into consideration the time value, but what about the current value, or is that this number?
Yep. That was. Right here where we break this down as far as individual divisions. And you can see if you go down to the bottom of the table, like if we look at HA again, and we look at the liabilities broken down, and we go across, that shows you that the assets in that particular division are 10.9 million. Total liability is 10.2. That's where that little bit of a overfunding comes in, because that division is funded at 107%.
Okay, so if we reallocate every year, we're looking, the important number is the 10.2.
Yes. Yep. Good question.
And then I have one quick follow-up question back on page 17. So can you explain to me one more time how, as it relates to the hybrid, what this table shows, the 10.8, the 7 point, or the 0.7 and the 0.8?
Market value on page 17.
Yeah, right. The table right there. Yep.
Now the difference with this table is market value of assets. So the difference is market value of assets doesn't have any smoothing into it, built into it. So MERS uses a 5-year smoothing. So that's for investment earnings. So for example, we're using 7.35 as our rate of return assumption. If we make more than that, so last year, 13.38, I believe, was our rate of return. We made more than we assumed we would, which is awesome. But we take that and we smooth it out over 5 years. Same if we, didn't hit our mark and it was under, that loss is smoothed out over 5 years. So in a nutshell, any gains or losses are smoothed over a 5-year period. Okay, so with this whole actuarial valuation, there's that 5-year smoothing built in, and that's built in there for contribution stability. So you don't have that volatility of a good year and then, a year that we didn't do as well. So market value of assets is real money. There's no smoothing built into this money. So this is your actual assets. So if for some reason the county said, we want to take our assets out, we want to administer our own plan, we would use actual market value assets instead of the actuarial value of your money. Does that make sense?
Got it. Yep. Thank you. Okay,
Any
that's all I
more
have. Thank you so much.
Okay, you bet. Anyone else?
I have a couple of questions, and I want to mention first to the commissioners that this was kind of intended to be an overview of the situation. You'll have an opportunity to sit through more detailed stuff because it is a lot to digest in one sitting. Even if you did read the report ahead of time, but one thing, and we've been discussing pensions for about 50 minutes, so we're gonna won't be able to talk about this all evening. But what are the with respect to levers that the commissioners could consider? I mean, the lever in my mind that we have been at least for about the last, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, the lever has been adding more money, investing, making more payments to MERS. There are other levers that, and were you going to talk about those, Ms. Feinberg?
Yep, that was why I tried to kind of wrap this up. And I know this is a lot, and we can touch on that. And then if you ever want to schedule like a work session and we can sit and talk through things, I would be happy to do that also. So with your plan, you've already really narrowed down the benefit. You've taken all the expense out of it. The table that we showed, what your current cost is for offering this benefit, you can see just by looking at that table, by lowering the provision the provisions in the hybrid plan, what you've lowered your cost to. So you've lowered them substantially. So that's, the county has already taken the right step in that sense. So I'm going to give you a quick thought. And that thought is, so as a county, how much can we afford, to give the employees as a pension benefit based on their whole benefit package? We've already done this. We've really reduced the pension benefit. So we're actually now down to, our total cost for the hybrids, because these new hires coming in don't have unfunded liability, right? They're coming in. What you're paying for is that normal cost. That's not to say that there's not a risk that there's going to be some volatility, but basically it's that normal cost. So you've got that normal cost of 6.32, 5.98, and 5.73. So when you're looking at what can we do, if you're looking at it from the perspective of what can we do going forward, you're going to want to look at that cost. If you're thinking about a defined contribution plan for new hires going forward, you're going to want to keep in mind that's already your cost for a defined benefit plan. Sometimes, you'd wind up paying more. So just keep in mind that you've already done the right thing. The county's already made a hard decision and done the right thing as far as lowering that benefit. The only thing that you can do to your plan now is, yes, to your point, you've put a lot of money in. I think now that you're actually putting it in the surplus division, you're going to see that moving you in the right direction more quickly. The only thing that you can do that's going to lower your liability is going to be to do something that's going to impact your current employees. For example, that would be bridging down their multiplier on a going forward basis. So for example, when we looked at employees and we looked at, how many people currently are in your divisions that have a 2% multiplier. So for example, Division 1 has a 2% multiplier. You can bridge down the multiplier on a going forward basis. These are protected benefits under the state constitution that you can't diminish something you've already promised an employee. You can make changes if it's a union group, but obviously it would have to be collectively bargained. But you can, on a going forward basis, bridge a multiplier down. So for example, someone has a 2% multiplier in this division, you could bridge that multiplier down to a 1.25, a 1.5, whatever you chose on a going forward basis. So their benefit would then be two separate calculations. If they had been there for 10 years and then you bridged their multiplier down, when they got ready to retire, the calculation would be 10 years based on a 2% multiplier. And then after the bridge down, that portion of their career, say it was another 20 years, would be calculated at, say, a 1.5% multiplier. That is one of the only ways to really reduce the liability, the current liability, because where the actuaries are coming up with that liability is they're basing it on how much these employees are going to be receiving at retirement. So now they're calculating that everyone in this division, all 76 current actives, are going to be retiring out with a 2% multiplier. The liability would be lower because their pension would now be reduced. That is something that, in one of the only ways to really, have an impact is to do something that would impact the current employees, which is tough. Because you've set in motion the right steps by lowering your costs on a going forward basis. This would be something that would impact your current employees.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I believe Commissioner Drick had a question.
Yes, please. Two quick questions. On what page is the table that shows the total amount Livingston County paid out in 2019 for benefits? Which page do I look at?
You're going to look at page 18, table 5.
18, table 5. Okay, thank you. And in what market do you earn 13.38% actual rate of return?
That's in our total market fund.
And that
all defined benefit assets are in the MERS total market fund. If you have a 457 or you have another plan within MERS, that is an option as a portfolio, but as MERS, that portfolio has a lot of downside protection in it, because it is designed just for pension dollars.
Is that a bond market? Is it a stock market? Is it a hedge? What is it?
It's very transparent and it's on our website. So if you go to the MERS of Mich website, it's mersofmich.com, and you click on investments. You can break it down and you can see in the total market fund what the different allocations are. You can look at the historical returns for that particular fund. You can look at the fees for that particular fund.
So the label is total market fund.
It's the MERS total market fund, yes.
All right, I got it. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't give you the exact allocation breakdown now. And I know they look at that on a quarterly basis and make recommendations.
Thank you. Those are the only two I had.
Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you, Ms. Feinberg. I guess we need you to unshare your screen and we'll move on with the meeting.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me. If you have any questions, any follow-up, Cindy and Jennifer know exactly how to get a hold of me, and I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If Director of our Health Department, Diane McCormick, is still with us, I wanted to give her a few minutes to give us an update on the COVID vaccination process. Is Diane still with us? There, I see her.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, I'm going to be very quick. I've got some bullet points. I'll just read down the list. So we did have the large scale clinic at Howell High School that you are all aware of. Wes, thank you for stopping by. I think you got a good idea for how a vaccination clinic works in a larger scale than what we do here at the health department. We did administer 540 vaccines in 4 hours. We had 13 vaccinators. We utilized a plethora of volunteers and vaccinators, including the Michigan National Guard, EMS, Livingston County Health Department staff, and our Medical Reserve Corps volunteers. And we also had 2 nurses from the schools helping with the vaccination clinic. One thing that we're very encouraged to see is the flow of the clinic. And we had evaluators from 3 of the fire departments, 3 of the chiefs from the fire departments that were evaluating the clinic. And we all felt that the site does meet future needs for any large scale vaccination clinics that we may want to host. We're receiving 700 doses of Moderna vaccine tomorrow. We will be, and I want to talk a little bit about redistributing. We will be redistributing 150 doses of the 700 to IHA. They are a large healthcare organization. And IHA is part of the Trinity St. Joe's healthcare system. They have about 11,300 seniors within their primary care physician network here in Livingston County, and 26,000 seniors in their specialty care physicians in Livingston County. And so they will be targeting with the 150 doses plus 950 doses that St. Joe's Ann Arbor redistributed to them. So they're hosting 2 vaccination clinics at IHA Howell Primary Care and IHA Brighton Genoa Building this week with those doses. They select their seniors randomly, as we do, and then contact them, and the clinics will be up and running. Another partnership that I'm so excited to announce, and we'll be putting a press release out, is that we're going to be partnering with all 3 Myers pharmacies in Livingston County. And today I was able to finalize a partnership, and we will be redistributing 400 doses of the allocation to Myers. Myers will also be randomizing from the surveys and sending out links and emails and calling. They're appointment-based clinics, and they're going to be held Thursday and Friday at Brighton, Howell, and Heartland. They're distributing 100 doses to the Brighton, 100 doses to Heartland, and 200 doses to the Howell pharmacies. So they are also a fantastic partner. They've got the footprint in a large, well, it's a grocery store to be able to vaccinate, social distance, and do what they need to do. And actually, each Myers is capable, they have plans put together to be capable of vaccinating 1,000 doses of vaccine per day per store. So I'm really excited about that partnership. You know, all the doses coming into the health department doesn't mean we have to vaccinate all of the residents. We can distribute it out in the community. And I think it's an excellent opportunity to spread out the vaccine throughout the community. This week, we have a strike team going out of our nurses, and we'll be vaccinating at 2 of our adult foster care homes, not covered under the federal pharmacy program. They'll be going out this week. Last week, we went out and administered 130 doses at facilities, also not covered under the program. So we do have strike teams that we've developed with our core nurses and our Medical Reserve Corps that will go out. The remaining doses that we have left, we'll be doing a Saturday clinic. We'll be focusing on education staff. And we'll probably sneak in some state police in there and some child and adult protective service workers. That will be Saturday's clinic. We also have two clinics also scheduled this week, and they're the second dose clinic. So it's Groundhog's Day. We just don't do one clinic. We have to do two clinics, 28 days apart. So we're very busy, and that's why I'm so excited to have other partners helping us, because that's all we would be doing. Some weeks we would just be doing second doses and not be able to get to the first doses because of the second dose clinics that we'd have to do. With that, do you have any questions?
I want to make one comment, and then I'll ask my colleagues if they have any questions. So I did get an opportunity to attend the Howell High School mass vaccination clinic. The one comment, and the only comment I'll make, is so when I'm walking in from the parking lot, they have volunteers to help, direct the people receiving the vaccine. So I took an opportunity to chat with them, and I asked them how things were going. And so this was about, 11 o'clock. It was, halfway through the clinic. And I was very pleased to hear the comments were, well, people that are coming out are very happy. They thought they were going to be there forever, but they were in and out quickly. It was really a testament to the organization that was put together. It was very uplifting to see the coordinated response. You had Michigan National Guardsmen there. You had Howell Junior ROTC involved. You had the EMS department. You had, I'm sure I'm probably missing somebody, but.
Don't forget CERT.
CERT, yep. Is it Community Emergency Response Team or Citizen?
Yes, Community Emergency Response Team.
Yeah, it was, and I know the effort required to coordinate all the personnel plus all the supplies. And it was very nice to hear the feedback, right from the end user, the people getting vaccinated, that they were very pleased and it went quickly. So thank you, Diane, for your efforts and all of your staff.
Thanks for the feedback.
Anybody have any questions for Diane?
Mr. Chair, I have a question, please.
Yes, Commissioner Lawrence.
Hi, Diane.
Hi, Kate.
I've been asked by a constituent. He and his wife had completed the form online to sign up for the COVID vaccination. His question to me was, now there's a random selection. What is the purpose for the random selection and not take them in order in which you've received their request?
It's just the fairness. The random selection, we do weight it towards the 75 and over, though we also include the 65 and over. And it's a selection process that is widely used throughout the healthcare systems, other county health departments, and the nation. They get the list and they do a random selection to build in some fairness.
Is it computerized random selection?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the epidemiologist that has some program that does it. So don't ask me any questions about.
I'm good with that computerized random selection. Thank you.
And I will say it's going to take a few months before we get through that list. And you can't forget, you have IHA, Michigan Medicine, Ascension. I know people that are in the Ascension group, the healthcare system. Unfortunately, you have to go to Macomb to get the vaccine. Michigan Medicine, they're going to start some clinics up here, and also down in Ann Arbor. And then St. Joe's through IHA. They have 1,100 doses that they're giving out this week. So it's just not the health department that you have opportunity to get vaccine on.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Commissioner Zajac.
Diane, thanks for all your hard work on this. With the Meyer partnership and the redistribution, is there a check and balance to ensure that those are for Livingston County residents only? You know, somebody from Wayne County can't drive into our Myers and get a vaccine.
We had quite a discussion about that, and we need reports each week to assure. We can't get the names, obviously, for health protected reasons, but they can at least, we're asking for age demographics, City of Brighton, Howell Township, you know, the township zip code, so we can assure that the vaccines are getting into the residents' arms.
Okay. Second question with regard to it sounded like you have a plan, or Meyer has a plan that they could do up to 3,000 a day in the county.
Yes.
So is the only really roadblock to that just the lack of vaccines in the county?
Yes.
Okay. No more questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Commissioner Sager. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Gross.
Yep. Diane, I'm assuming that the people who are getting the vaccine now and for the foreseeable future, those are folks that have gone online or called and have appointments or reservations, if you will. Is that correct?
It depends. When I spoke to IHA today, they are randomizing, getting the information, and emailing out, kind of cold calling people that is in their system. They don't have a link that you can go to get on to request a vaccine for IHA and or Michigan, any of the healthcare systems. So they are pulling from their database and then reaching out to their selected individuals, sending them either a link, an email. If the email bounces back, they will also call. And Myers will do the same thing as well.
As a follow-up, do you have a crystal ball? Is there any way you can speculate on when folks might be able to get the vaccine on a walk-in basis? I mean, are we looking at summertime?
It could be, you know, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, it looks like it will be going for emergency authorization use. I was on a call today, the end of January. Well, it's almost the end of January. So I'm assuming it's going to go possibly at the end of this week. And it will go into review if I'm hearing that the efficacy of that particular vaccine matches or exceeds the Moderna or and the Pfizer. So in the 95 to 100%. I heard that from Dr. Mugdell with McPherson St. Joe's Hospital. That's how long I've been here. Anyway, and that's a 1-dose vaccine. And then there's another 1-dose vaccine that's going to be shortly there behind. So when you have 4 vaccines in mass production, especially 2 that are going to be 1 dose, it will speed things up. My crystal ball for walk-in probably will not be until the summer. You're correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Diane?
Mr. Chair, I have one further question if every commissioner's had an opportunity to ask.
I don't see any other commissioners, so.
Diane, one more question. Is there identification required to get the vaccination?
Yes, we do require identification. It depends on what category you're in. If you're in the 1A healthcare, if you work in Livingston County but live in Ingham County, you can still get vaccinated here. So it's as long as they show us identification that they work at XYZ dental office, we will accept that. But they may not live here in Livingston County. So yes, there is an identification requirement, and Myers will also require identification.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Thank you very much for joining us, Diane. I really appreciate the update and all your hard work. Thank you. We will, actually, I should ask if there are any reports from commissioners before we close out reports. Any reports from commissioners? It appears not, so we will close out the report section and we'll move forward to agenda item number 11. It's approval of the consent agenda items. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Griffith.
I'm sorry,
Commissioner Plank.
Mr. Chair, I would like to remove a resolution from the consent agenda, resolution 2021-01-013.
Okay. Yes. Just for just so everybody knows, new commissioners, you don't need a second to remove something off the consent agenda. So we will remove off the consent agenda resolution 2021-01-013, and we'll discuss that in resolutions for consideration. So that leaves two resolutions on the consent agenda, 2021-01-014 and -015. Is there, I guess I'm going to ask for a motion and support for those two.
So moved, Griffith.
Support, Lawrence.
Motion by Griffith, support by Lawrence. Any discussion? Hearing none. Could we get a roll call for the consent agenda items?
Yes. Commissioner Griffith,
Yes.
Commissioner Gross,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri,
Yes.
Commissioner Helserman,
Muted. Commissioner Helserman, you're muted.
You're still muted.
I'll come back to Commissioner Helserman. Commissioner Dreck,
Yes.
Commissioner Zajac,
Yes.
Commissioner Helserman, I see you're unmuted.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. We'll move down to, we'll take them in order. So the resolution 2021-01-013 we'll discuss first. It's a resolution authorizing special supports and programs to apply for the Bureau of Justice Assistance Grant for Adult Drug Court Discretionary Grant Program for FY 2022. Is there a motion?
Move,
Zajac.
Lawrence.
Motion by Lawrence, support by Zajac. Discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Plank, go ahead.
So after the vote, I had some time to think about it, and I did talk to Sarah Applegate earlier today. I think she's actually on the call, on the Zoom call. And these are just some concerns that I want to address about that resolution. The first thing is that there was mention in the discussion earlier that, during the Finance Committee, that that there could be other grants out there that don't require a match, and that this particular grant is due to be filed, I believe, in March. So a couple of things. One, what I'd like to do is ask if we can amend the resolution to either to delay the actual submittal until then, until it's due. And the other thing I talked about with Sarah is that she did say if she applied for the grant that probably sometime, I think in September or later in the year, if we do get approved for the grant, we can decline that grant at that time. So that gives me more comfort in knowing that there could be other grants that come up between this time and that time that we can use that don't require a match for us to pay. So the other amendment that I would like to put in there is that if that does happen, I would like us to reconsider accepting the grant if we can get another grant in its place with either a lesser match or no match. Then the other area that I'd like to address is we talked about, sorry, I wrote my notes down here. That if we enter into this, for some reason we enter into this grant, we apply, we get, you know, we're granted the money. I'd like also the amendment to read something along the lines of that we as Board of Commissioners can, at our discretion, I guess, opt out of it at any point in the grant, meaning that if we decide this is a good thing for year 1 and year 2, but year 3 comes up, maybe there's reasons we need to not match the grant, that we can give it back. And I think Sarah's on the call, so I don't know if she wants to chime in.
Do we have a go ahead and address this one. 2 points. One, these grants are quite extensive, and the earlier you can get your submissions in order and get these submitted is best for these types of grants. So I would ask this board not to delay this matter. I would ask that a decision be made today. And second, in terms of opting out, we're here asking this board for a partnership, for a commitment to our drug court participants for the course of this loan, for a 4-year program. You know, this is not a lot of funding. I mean, it's a lot of funding, and we'll stretch it as far as we can go. But it's a total of $500,000 over 4 years. So in terms of, you know, funding, it's not a whole lot. So we're asking for a 4-year commitment from this board to partner with our drug court to meet the needs of one of our most vulnerable communities in the county.
Any other? I'll address Commissioner Plank's you know, comments about the amendments in a moment, but I would like to hear. I see our lawyer trying to chime in. Mr. McNulty.
Sorry, was there a second on the motion to amend?
I don't think we had a.
We didn't have a. I didn't see it. I heard comments. I didn't hear an amendment.
Oh.
Commissioner Plank.
Do we have an original motion in a second?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lawrence. I have a second by Commissioner Zajac.
Okay, thank you much.
You're welcome.
Anybody else who would like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Chairman Nakagiri. I too agree with Commissioner Plank on these 3 concerns. A 4th concern is that we actually voted to amend at finance, and nothing was amended in ink on anything that was presented in our packet tonight. It is the exact same wording without any amendment of any kind, but we had a vote to amend it, and no amendment is included in any shape or form. How did that amendment just disappear?
Commissioner Drick?
Sure.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Lawrence. You'll find that amendment that we made on the 2nd page of the resolution. And that amendment indicates that if awarded, the Livingston County Board of Commissioners authorize the treasurer to transfer funds from the general fund to the grant program as needed to effectuate the grant cash match requirement. That was an amendment that Cindy had suggested we make.
Now I see it. Okay. So I remember a discussion that it was revealed in questioning that there was 10,800 in a general fund that the court was willing to utilize for 2021. And I thought that was part of a motion by Commissioner Helserman. And in discussing this with him, he says that wasn't his motion. I thought we had a $10,800 savings we were securing. And if we're not, then I'm sorry. I think we ought to try to secure that 10,800 savings. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Drick. Any other commissioners with comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Gross.
To address Commissioner Drick's question, my recollection was that the court system had identified $10,800 that they currently have, which would cover part of the $31,000 for this calendar year. And so they would only need to come up with an additional $20,000 for the match for this year. That was my recollection on that aspect.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gross.
Mr. Chairman, I have some comments if I could, please.
Yes, Commissioner Helserman.
Okay, I was the one that asked for the motion, and I asked for the wording from Cindy, and I see, as Commissioner Lawrence said, it's on page 2 of the resolution. I would, this shows to me that the general fund to this, that we transfer funds from the general fund to this grant program as needed. Okay, so I would, it's my understanding that that means that the $10,000 that are presently in their general fund budget would be used first. It wouldn't be needed until that point. The other part of this is that from what I understand, we will not be receiving this grant until September, October, which is only a quarter of a year or less. And so what we're talking with a grant of $125,000 and a quarter of that being $31,000, and then a quarter of that a quarter of that being would be under $8,000. So it looks like this particular calendar year, correct me, Cindy, if I'm wrong, that we will not be, in this calendar year, we will not be exceeding even the $10,000. Is my understanding correct in that, or would we get this as a lump sum and then have to do the whole 31,000 now, which would bring Commissioner Drick's question into make it relevant. Cindy, do you have,
Sure.
Could you address that, please?
Commissioner Nakagiri, can I address the board?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the way the resolution is written, it is for a general fund match for the entire grant not to exceed $125,000. The amendment that was made is to allow the treasurer to transfer funds to the general fund as needed to effectuate this. So I didn't see the actual grant application or document, requiring it. So if it is a percentage of expenditures, we're only going to transfer over, so for instance, if it's 25% of expenditures, we would only transfer over that 25% of actual expenditures. So that is why it's done on an up to requirement. It's not going to be the full $125,000 transfer upfront. The treasurer transfers it based off of the actual expenditure level, if that helps.
And also, if they have money in their general fund, then it would not be transferred because that money would be taken out of the court's general fund first. Is that I think that's the understanding of at least some of our commissioners.
That was definitely a conversation that the commissioners had, but there was not an actual amendment to move that money from the court's current general fund budget over to the grant. So that was definitely discussed, but that was not amended as part of this resolution.
Okay. Well, I would make that amendment that that the court's general fund money would be used first for this grant match. That's
question, Commissioner Helsman. We say if you going to make propose an amendment, I guess we said the court. I would like to get better clarification for myself on what's being asked and what's being and have language reflective so that everybody knows.
Okay.
Not only that who's in the meeting, but who will be reading the minutes. What is your intent?
Okay, my intent is that we use that. I don't know exactly what the amount is. I believe it's $10,000 of, and that we use that amount, and that we supplement that with the whatever the difference is between 31,250 and that amount. That's
So,
if we're looking for facts and figures.
So if I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I will. I'm just trying to craft the wording for the resolution. That is, or the amendment to the resolution to say another. Therefore, be it resolved that the courts will supply $10,800 of general fund money prior to the county investing general fund money. Is that?
Yes, that would be sufficient. Part that would be fine. I'm sure that between now and the time that's spent, the courts might have some more use for that general fund money, but I think that would be that would express my amendment. Yes.
Could I ask the clerk to read the amendment as she understands it?
Mr. Chair, could we ask Cindy Katnick to please provide the court's line item that we would be using? Do you have that account number, Cindy, that you could provide, or possibly so that I put an account number in, because I don't know that the court has a general fund. I guess that's my point, Cindy. Can you assist us here?
So I see Roberta with her hand raised, and I would believe that it's in their central services line item. It's probably where the 10,800 is currently residing. I don't know the exact account. I was really not aware that this specific amount was going to the court. So Roberta, do you have that answer?
I don't have the line item number. I could certainly get it, but this is a line item budgeted amount for the current 2021. That's not necessarily guaranteed for the life of this grant. So if we're crafting a resolution to commit the court to offsetting the cash match by 10,800 or $10,000, then there has to be a commitment from the board to continue to fund at that level over the life of this grant. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's, if I could, that's my intention. We're talking about year one at this particular point. Because this amount will be worked out at budget time. This number will be part of the court's budget. And this, I believe that we are making that commitment on behalf of the commissioners, as you say, but past this year, we will deal with that in the regular budget process, because we are committing to this. We are committing to the 25% match, but any discussion further than this year has to be done at a budget amendment. We cannot tie our hands at this particular point, or the court's hands at this particular point in the future, except that we're agreeing to a 25% match.
Cindy Katnick, can you comment on that?
Mr. Chair, I believe you need a support for his motion before we discuss any further.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Lawrence. So I just want clarification on what's, on what the clerk will be, if you would read the amendment as you understand it.
Okay, at this point in time, I have, my understanding is it's a motion to amend, adding a therefore be it further resolved to amend the court's budget in using the existing money in the central service line item first for the grant match. But that's about as vague as I can get, Mr. Chair.
I'm not comfortable with that personally. It's a little bit vague. I would rule we need, Mr. Commissioner Hausman, we would need better language, in terms, more precise language for the amendment.
Is there a second for the amendment? That's
second, Drick.
So that then the point, the point is, we would not have known this about the $10,000, except the courts used that $10,000 as part of their selling point. And it seems as though if they were not willing to use this $10,000, they should not have brought that point up. And in my mind, I think it's up to the courts, since they brought this as part of their selling point, to say how they would do that. I'm interested in hearing what the courts, why they told us about this $10,000 and how they plan to do that, since they brought up this idea for us. How were they planning to do that?
Mr. Chair,
I just as a point of order, we have an amendment on the floor, a second, asking the courts to, how they planned on doing it. I think it's outside the bounds of the discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Warren.
If I recall, at our finance meeting, Roberta indicated that the $10,800 was going towards attorney fees because that is not allowed in the grant. In other words, that 10.8 or whatever, the 10,000 is set aside to cover attorneys' representation for that year, because you cannot use grant money to pay an attorney. I believe that is how it was presented.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners before we vote on the amendment? Commissioner Drick.
Thank you. I was looking in my notes of the back and forth, and I thought I was quite clear that I said, now your first ask is 31,250, but you are willing to put in the 10,8, so your reduced ask is to 20,450. I didn't hear at that point anything about the 10,8 being earmarked for attorneys, and in fact, I don't have any note about committed to attorneys, but everything was happening fast and it's tough to take notes of everything. I don't get it all.
Commissioner Gross.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've gotten mixed up in the weeds a little bit with when I look at this resolution. The grant is going to be applicable to fiscal years 22, 23, 24, and 25. And so I don't see that we need to do anything right now pertaining to fiscal year 21.
Commissioner Gross, the state fiscal year begins October 1st of 2021.
Yeah, but okay, so we're talking a 3-month period of time. So they would need it's $31,000 for a full year. They would need roughly $10,000 for the 3 months in fiscal year 21.
A little over 7,800.
Okay.
Anything further, Commissioner Gross?
I guess not. I'm just thinking that I don't think we need to make a decision tonight on this.
I just as a point of order, I'm a bit confused on what the amendment's trying to do. The wording is imprecise, and I'm uncomfortable with that. I'm not uncomfortable with asking the courts to share in the cost of the of the general fund money that we need to appropriate. With that being said, I'm going to ask for a legal point of view on the wording of the amendment. And is it clear what we are voting on, Mr. McNulty, in your mind?
No. Sorry, no, it's not. The way I'm understanding it is that you're basically saying for fiscal 2021, you're as a condition of this authorization, you're asking the court to contribute $10,800 from its current budget allocation.
Is that, well,
But that's just my understanding.
That would be probably the most straightforward way of saying the amendment, yes.
I really want this so people know what they're voting on. So Commissioner Helserman, can you state exactly what you would like, how you would like the amendment to read? And then if we could get a second on that, we can actually take a vote.
Yeah, I move that we amend this, we put it there, therefore, that the first $10,000 of this, the 25% match comes from the court's general fund. And this only applies to fiscal year 21, our fiscal year 21, which is, the first quarter of of the state's fiscal year 22.
Mr. McNulty, can you help wordsmith that?
Sure. I'm getting lost on the general fund. That for fiscal 2021, I'm sorry, hold on one second. Am I still there?
Yes.
Sorry. For county fiscal year 20, therefore be it resolved that this authorization is contingent upon the court contributing towards the match for county fiscal 2021 in the sum of not less than $10,800.
Not more than.
Is what the lawyer said, what Mr. McNulty said, Commissioner Helserman, is that adequate?
Yeah, except for not more than $10,000, because we don't want them to spend, we don't, if the expenditure is $5,000 or $6,000, we don't expect them to pay $10,000. So less than, not more than $10,000.
Well, Commissioner Helserman, they could kick in $1 and it would meet the requirements.
I didn't understand.
Why don't we say the pro rata equivalent of $10,800 if fully expended?
Sure, that's good. That's fine.
Well, this is about as clear as mud to the clerk. So I'm going to ask legal counsel to read back in one plain sentence what you would like me to reflect in the amendment, please.
Therefore, be it further resolved that this authorization is contingent upon the court utilizing currently budgeted funds for county budget 2021 toward the match in a pro rata portion equal to $10,800 if fully funded. It is not clear, but I think that's what I'm understanding.
Commissioner Nakagiri?
Yeah.
So I just clarified with Roberta Sikarsky that this is a 25% match. So it could be very simplified, just saying that for the county fiscal year 2021, the court will cover 25% of actual expenditure. I mean, that's really, is that correct? Actual expenditure for 2021.
Not quite. Up to 10,008.
Yeah, okay, exactly. That's
perfect.
Yeah, that
25% of actual funds expended in 2021 up to but not exceeding 10,008.
Understood.
Perfect.
Yes, that's my understanding of what the courts offered, and I am accepting the court's offer. That's if people understand that, that's what I'm saying.
So I would like, we'll leave it up to Mr. McNulty to rephrase that so the clerk can know what's actually going into the minutes here.
Therefore, be it fully resolved that this authorization is contingent upon the court utilizing currently budgeted funds to meet the match the 25% match up to a maximum of $10,800 for county fiscal 2021.
Yes.
Clerk Hunley,
I think that's it.
You capture that?
Yes, I'm going to read it back here in just a moment to make sure that I have it adequate. So therefore, be it further resolved
that this authorization is contingent upon
court utilizing current budgeted funds to meet the match up to, we could say the 25% match.
Yes.
25% match up to $10,800 for the county's fiscal year 2021.
Correct.
Bingo, got it.
Is there a second?
Second.
There. Any further discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Helserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Dreck,
Yes.
Commissioner Zajac,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffith,
Yes.
Commissioner Gross,
No.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader. You're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Nakagiri,
Yes.
motion to amend carries.
So that was a little bit painful, but I would say in the future, just be a recommendation to, anybody making, wanting to make an amendment to, provide written, specific written language, it would make things go more quickly. So with that being said, I want to, so we have an amended motion. And I did hear early in the discussion, I want to give Commissioner Plank, she had mentioned with, I considered them thoughts about, further amendments. So I will call on Commissioner Plank to, was there amendments that you wanted to make?
Well, based off of what we just discussed, the only thing that I would like to see is that if there was an amendment that if any grants surface between now and the time that we possibly get approved, that we have that we will forego the grant, the grant that we have to match 25% and go with the other grants, as long as they are around the same amount of money to help the courts with their services.
Commissioner Plank, to condense that into an actual motion to amend it, it's going to be difficult.
Oh.
If you have specific language that you would like to offer, that is concise on what, you could offer an amendment and see if there's a second, but I would say trying to do an amendment that you just stated is would be out of order.
Okay.
Mr.
sorry,
Mr. Chair, I have a
Commissioner
question.
Plank has the floor.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Is this something that I have to, I'm trying to think how I could break it out. Can we just make an amendment that says that if we are, I don't know what the term is, but if a grant that we can apply for, it's like, I'm gonna have to try to figure out how to word this into a.
Perhaps what you're looking for is if other grants become available.
Okay, perfect. Then we have the option to forego this grant.
Mr. McNulty, comments?
That would change the first now therefore be it fully resolved, because right now what it says is you can submit a grant, and if the grant's awarded, then as long as county signs off on the grant documents, when I say county legal signs off on the grant documents, that you're authorizing acceptance of the grant. Now, you could break it out into two separate things where you are just authorizing them to submit, and then they would have to come back when the grant documents come in to accept the award. You could do that, but right now the way it's written is if the application is submitted, as long as the application and the grant documents pass county attorney, then they are being authorized to accept the grant.
Okay.
My understanding on grants is that there are two steps. This is a question for Rich McNulty, that, you know, you were authorizing them to, on a grant, to go and apply for the grant. And then there's another vote to accept the grant because we aren't sure what strings are going to be attached to the grant. Do you have a different opinion?
No, there can be. It can be one step. You can accept the grant, or you can allow them to apply and accept as long as it passes council, or you can make them come back a second time. Both are acceptable. I'm just saying the one that you have in front of you right now is a both. You're authorizing acceptance. Cindy? Sorry.
Commissioner Nakagiri, we do actually have a grant policy, and our grant policy states that the process is supposed to be that the department comes forward to the board to request authorization to apply. And then the next step would be, if the grant is awarded, the department is to come back to get request authorization to accept the award. We have had a few departments that have, usually it's because of a time crunch, that they will ask to apply for, and if awarded, accept it. So this particular resolution is asking for application and acceptance of the award, but you could do it in two separate steps, and that is what our grant policy process is supposed to be. But we have done it both ways throughout the years.
I just make a comment, and then I personally would be voting no for the reasons that we are automatically having to accept the grant. The policy, as Ms. Katnick said, is the one that ought to be used. You know, if we want to, well, I'm just telling people I'm going to be voting no, period.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Commissioner Gross.
There's so much confusion on this thing. I would move that we table this till the next board meeting and give the courts the opportunity to consider breaking this into two separate resolutions. One to strictly apply.
Well, if you make a motion to table, we would need a second.
Okay.
Can I have a meeting certain that you would like to request this table to? Is it to the next full board meeting, Mr. Gross, Commissioner Gross?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second? I will put in a second. Motion to table cuts off debate. Roll call. So this is a privilege motion. It supersedes everything else on the floor. We are taking a vote on tabling this motion till the next full board meeting. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gross.
Yes.
Commissioner Plank.
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence.
No.
Commissioner Reeder.
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri.
Yes.
Commissioner Helserman.
No.
Commissioner Drick.
No.
Commissioner Zajac.
No.
Commissioner Griffith.
No.
Motion to table fails.
All right. We have
Mr. Chair, may I make a motion?
Commissioner Lawrence, go ahead.
Well, why don't I just say what's just going to get this over this hump that we're in right now is to just break it up into two. The resolution is to apply for the grant. Take out the words that say accept, but just apply for the grant. Then they will have to come back if they get the grant, which they'll know in probably July. then the courts can come back to us.
I second that amendment.
Reader second.
So a motion by Lawrence to remove the language to accept the grant. So we are just applying for the grant. And a second by Reader. So we're amending the main motion with this amendment. Roll call, please, Clerk Hunley.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri,
Yes.
Commissioner Helserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Drick,
Yes.
Commissioner Zajac,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffith,
Yes.
Commissioner Gross,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank.
Yes.
Motion to amend carries.
All right. I'm going to ask for a vote on the amended motion. So unless there's further discussion. Hearing none. So we're going to vote on the amended motion, which there were two amendments made. One was to require the courts to pay 25% up to a maximum of $10,800. The other is that the other amendment was so that this is just to apply for the grant. It is not to receive the grant or approve to take the grant. So roll call, please.
Commissioner Lawrence,
I apologize. Clarification, please.
Thank you.
We are voting on what?
We are voting on the amended motion. There were two amendments to the motion. The first amendment that was approved was to.
Okay, so we're voting on just the First Amendment right now or both?
the amended resolution.
Okay, thank you. My apologies, I'm ready to vote.
Oh,
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri,
Yes.
Commissioner Helserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Drick,
Yes.
Commissioner Zajac,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffith,
Yes.
Commissioner Gross,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Wow. All right, moving on. We have a second resolution for consideration. It's Resolution 2021-01-016, a resolution approving appointments to Livingston County boards and committees. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Support Zajac.
Any discussion?
This came from personnel, and at that particular point, I was not aware that there were any other concerns from the drain commissioner. And so at this particular point, Mr. Chairman, if I could, it would help me in my discussion of this matter to hear Drain Commissioner Brian Jonker, if you would allow that, I would appreciate that.
Drain Commissioner Jonker, do you have comments? I would ask to keep them brief, but if you have comments that would help the members make an informed vote, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can really get into it tonight, but I did want to say, thought it was a great idea that commissioners were talking about having an enhanced process for reviewing future board appointees. So I'd be happy to answer that if you wanted to contact me directly, Commissioner Helserman, if that would be of use to you.
Okay, so you don't have a particular question on these particular appointments? That was what I was asking.
No, I do not.
Okay, then that's fine. Then, Chairman, I will take care of this offline then.
Any other questions, comments?
I have one, Mr. Chair. I believe we already approved these. The only one that was missing is the name Greg Tatera. So we're just voting on Greg Tatera this evening, correct?
No, it's Greg Tatera and Dale Brewer for the.
I thought that was approved. Okay, my apologies. I'm good then.
All right. Other questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Helserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Dreck,
As a licensed attorney, I'm required to respect the attorney-client privilege, and I am not allowed to vote. I have to abstain.
So Commissioner Drick abstains.
Commissioner Zajac,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffith,
Yes.
Commissioner Gross,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We're at the final call to the public. If there's anybody in the public that wishes to address the Board of Commissioners, if you would use the Zoom raise your hand function or raise your hand, wave at us. I see Lance Schumacher with his Zoom hand raised, Mr. Schumacher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick couple questions if I have time. I was going back to Diane McCormick's report regarding the COVID vaccines. And I remember at the last commissioners meeting, it was reported that the people would be put on the list according to when they entered their name on the waiting list through the website. Now I'm finding it sounds like what they're doing is they're doing it according to cold calls. Myers and IHA are doing cold calls for people to get their vaccines. That does not seem a very fair way of doing it if that's the case. And if they're not using the list from the county's website, that's pretty unfair, I think. But the other thing that I wanted to point out is I know at the last meeting she was talking about a bunch of vaccines, supposedly another shipment of vaccines coming on yesterday, the 25th, or today, I guess that would be today, the 25th. But I don't know if they came today, but then she's saying that there's 700 that are coming tomorrow. And if 400 are going to Meyer and 150 are going, or 400 are going to IHA and 150 are going to Meyer, that puts 80% going to other places where they're just making cold calls. That doesn't seem very fair to me either. So I guess one of the questions I would have, Mr. Chairman, is whether or not how many vaccines are we receiving so far? And if it's going to be according to what it says, what seems to be the case, that cold calls are being made to people to get their vaccines, and the ones that are in the 1A category and the 1B category are as long as unless they're getting randomly picked, they're not going to get their vaccine. That was the first part. The second part was, I know the field rep for Representative Slacken was on the call earlier. I don't know if she's still there or not, but it would be nice, Mr. Chairman, if we could get some assistance from the feds about getting some vaccines that we need here in this county very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schumacher. I would ask our county administrator to address those questions with Diane McCormick, and get back to Mr. Schumacher.
Will do.
Any other Anybody else wishing to address the Board of Commissioners tonight? Oh, I see a waving hand. Maris Hershert? We'll need to unmute you there.
Thank you. Because I've watched this concept of writing a statement, what would help to have a vote on issuing, I mean, do I propose some kind of a statement written that you might consider approving to talk about what happened on January 6th, to let the people in the county know that you acknowledge the new president of the United States without reservation or thinking that it was an illegal or fraudulent election? I want to know how if I should put that in, or can I put that in some kind of a written form for you to discuss?
I would, the call of public isn't really intended to be a back and forth, but I will say this, if you, I will call you as your representative on the County Board of Commissioners and to discuss this in more detail, but it can't be today's call to public.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else wish to address the board?
Commissioner Nakagiri, Brian Jonker would like to address the board.
Mr. Jonker.
And my apologies, my raised hand isn't working. I just want to say a thank you. I noticed Congresswoman Slotkin's representative Mona Shand was on the meeting earlier, and I think I did reference this at a prior board meeting, but we are still in the process of building an $8 million press facility in Heartland. And because of COVID, we had issues with getting some of the engineers from Germany. And so we contacted her office. I had a call back from Mona within an hour. I think a couple hours after that, I had the forms we needed to send to him. And Congresswoman Slotkin worked directly with the German ambassador to the United States. And we had that engineer on U.S. soil within a week and a half. So, I don't think she had to do that. But it was, her office was exceptionally professional, and it made a world of difference for us because we had a deadline and potentially could have been shut down by Genesee County. So I wanted to offer that thanks to Congresswoman Slotkin and her staff.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the board? I don't see anybody. Cindy is shaking her head no. So I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Griffith.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Reeder,
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri,
Yes.
Commissioner Helserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Drick,
Yes.
Commissioner Zajac,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffith,
Yes.
Commissioner Gross,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody.